Now I'm going to try recording this video again. The first time I recorded it, for some reason there was no audio when I switched screens, but I've gotten that problem resolved. But some people had some questions on exactly how to use VirtualBox. So I'm going to kind of show you that, and also we're going to talk about how to get the Fedora image. So here's our VirtualBox software, and you install that by searching for Oracle VirtualBox. And you got to create an Oracle account, but then you can download this software. Now, you do have to create a new virtual machine, and you can just start by typing Fedora. And pay attention to the folder that your virtual machine is going to be created in. What I do is I have my C drive, and I have a folder called VirtualBox VMs. And now the default here is 1 gig of memory. I'm going to go ahead and bump it up to 2. And I am going to not going to add a virtual hard disk at this time. Now you could create one when you created your virtual machine image. That's perfectly fine, and I would probably recommend that you do that if you were going to get the ISO method that I'll outline. Okay, so I didn't actually choose my Fedora folder here. I'm going to go ahead and do that because it doesn't exist. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to select that folder. And now my virtual machine folder has been created inside the my VirtualBox VMs folder that's on my hard drive. Now this is where the actual virtual machines actually live. Now there's two different ways you can go about getting this image. The first is I could download an ISO file um, from from the Fedora project. So this is and I'm just going to search here, Fedora project, and here comes the start page for Fedora. Now this is by the same people that are made Red Hat, and Red Hat is an enterprise Linux. They provide support. It's a supported product. It has a full staff development team. They also created the community edition of Fedora and also CentOS, or two community editions that the Red Hat folks oversee. But basically, if you want to get that Fedora, you can click there, and then now there's three different versions. The differences is that this one does not contain many desktop applications or a GUI interface or a window manager. This one does. The workstation will contain a window manager. And then the IoT edition will be especially for embedded systems. So there's not going to be as many drivers, and there's going to be some different um, hardware drivers in there. I've never actually used that, but that might be kind of fun to load that up on a VM and see what it's like. So basically, when you're ready to download, if you want to get the one with the GUI, you can download it. Now, there's again two more options here. One is if I actually want to put this onto USB removable media, I can use the media writer. This is going to be similar to the Windows software installation tool, which basically is a program that is designed to write to a flash drive, and it downloads the right image and puts it on there. But then I could just get an ISO file, and the ISO file is just what I really want. I want to grab that DVD image, and I got the Intel and AMD editions, so I can take the Intel 64-bit, and when I click download, I'm going to get an ISO file. Now, this particular file that gets downloaded, you You could put this in your VirtualBox VM folder. I like to put them on my SD card or an external hard drive. And because what I will do is I will point to these files for installation. So, so I have on my SD card, I have a special folder called ISO, and I could go into Fedora and I could actually save that ISO file right there. And that's what I would point my VirtualBox to when I want to do an installation. So once I have that file saved, right, this is 1.4 gigabytes, I think, but I don't know for sure. So once I have that saved, then I can go into VirtualBox and look at the settings and go to storage and notice that the IDE controller with the CD icon is empty, but I would actually browse to that ISO file and I would go ahead and put it in the quote disk drive, okay? And then when I start my virtual machine, I would actually be reading from that DVD image, and it would boot up a live version of Fedora. Now the thing that I may not want to do that just because I would actually have to go through the installation process once I boot that up. If I want a usable system where I'm not booting up to the very same thing every time. So I'm still going to have to go through at some point the installation process. So if you just want to play with a live distribution and play with it, and when you're done, you shut it off. That's fine. You do the ISO. Or if you want to go through the installation process, you can do the ISO. Now, the other thing that you need to do is that when we created this virtual machine, um, we did not create a virtual disk. So you'll have to create a virtual disk by clicking on this add a hard disk. And so you can click that add a hard disk and notice that you can create one right there. Okay. So that will get your hard drive created. That way, when your virtual machine starts up from that ISO file, you will have a disk that you can install and have a writable file system. Now, the other method is to go to OS boxes. Now, all this does is it shortcuts the installation process for a VM. Now, I do still end up with a operating system with a user called OS boxes, right? So I'm gonna have to still do a little bit of prep work before I turn that into a usable system. But I can go to the VirtualBox images, and then I can look for Fedora in the alphabetical list. Now, all these other things are distributions as well, right? So there's a lot of these. Okay, so here's a link to the official website, or I go to the virtual disk image. Now, all of these are distributions, each one 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. They're all different sizes. And then there's an info tab which gives you the username and password. Notice they're all osboxes.org. So it doesn't matter which one you download. Obviously, the latest one is going to have the most recent updates, but it's also going to be the largest distribution. So now notice the workstation's bigger than the server. I went ahead and downloaded the smallest one just because my disk space is at a premium. If you're not worried about disk space, and not 9, I downloaded I think 27 with 1.2 gigabytes. But if you're not worried about disk space, what's going to happen is you're going to get this is going to be a compressed file. So when you go and download that file, and again, I put it in my flash drive, and I put it in my ISO folder, and I made a folder called Fedora so I could keep track of it. Now this is the file that actually gets downloaded, and it is a 7Z file. It's a compressed file. Okay, it's a zip archive. Now it is. We'll look at this really quickly because it is 1.3 gigabytes in size. And when I actually open that up, which I will need to do, notice that it is 5.4 gigabytes. All right, so the uncompressed version of that is much larger. And so I'm going to need to double check and make sure that my disk space can handle the load of that file. So I'm going to look at now I got 27.5 gigs on my disk, so I should be good. I'll need to go into that folder, and I'm going to go ahead and hit that file and extract it. And where am I going to put it? I'm not going to put it in the ISO directory on my flash drive. I'm going to go down to my virtual machine folder, which is on my C drive. Now you may have a different pathway. You got to figure that out yourself. Here's my Virtualbox VMs folder, and here's Fedora. Okay. So now I created another. When I made that VM, it made another Fedora folder. I'm not sure why there, but I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And it's going to go through the process of actually extracting that file onto the disk. So it's going to take just a little bit of time to do that. And while I'm doing that, that shouldn't take too long. But again, either way, you can do it now. If you get that ISO file, you're going the traditional way. Um, in large environments, enterprise environments, there's not really a run on disk space. There's plenty of disk space available. There's plenty of space, and when you create a machine, it's very fast. So the fact that we're waiting to have that expand is something that wouldn't normally happen, like say in the cloud, for instance. So okay, we're gonna go back, and we should be done. All right, so I can close my archive. I'm gonna go back to my VM, and I'm just gonna double check. Now, what I haven't done is I haven't actually. What I've done is taken a virtual disk image and I placed it on my hard drive, but I don't have anything listed there, so I got to add that. So I'm going to click plus to add a hard disk, and I'm going to add. And now I backed up. I didn't put anything in that Fedora folder. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and remove it because here's my Fedora 27 virtual disk, and I'm going to select it. Now that means I'm going to choose. Notice that it's 5 gigabytes, but it could be up to 200 gigabytes. One of the benefits of using an ISO file to create your virtual machine is that if you create a disk file, it'll start off very small, much less than 5 gigs. So if you were to install with maybe a minimal installation, you wouldn't use as much disk space. So this definitely uses more disk space. But now that I've done that, I can click OK. Now I've gone and I need to point it back to the right folder. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and okay. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to delete this virtual machine, and I'm not going to delete files. I'm just going to remove the machine. I'm going to create it again. And that's okay. I'll definitely want you to watch me do this. And we're going to add that. We're going to tell it to use that hard disk. And I want some more memory. Okay, so it didn't like the fact that that folder existed. All right. Okay, there we go. So now we have our virtual images inside the folder. I've assigned my hard drive to it, and I should be booting up. One thing I want to do is I want to just jump into scaled mode real quick. That will allow me to make this bigger. When we boot up for the first time, it does take just a minute. But what should be happening right now is it's going through the process, identifying all of the hardware, loading the correct kernel modules, and then we should be given very quickly here a glimpse of our session manager. Notice the user manager has started. And we should be given a login screen here very shortly. And that password is going to be osboxes.org. And what will happen is that this will automatically start a what's called a window manager, and it's going to load up the desktop environment and a control panel like the control surfaces, the app loader or app launcher, and other things here. So now we're at our, it's going to give us some setup. We're going to choose English. I'm going to turn location services off. And it's going to ask me to connect my online account. I wanted to show you this. You may want to go ahead and do that because one of the benefits of connecting your online account is that you could load up a Google Doc and use it for documentation while you're in the course. And then you could go to the Google Doc in your regular machine, and it'll still everything you put in that Google Doc online will still be there for you. So I'm not going to do that here, but I'm just going to skip it and go right to start using Fedora. And it's going to take me right to the help for GNOME. GNOME is the name of the window manager and desktop interface. So I encourage you to look through this information. And then basically you have a desktop here. Now, if you were using this system in production, you may have different files that would actually show up, different icons or whatnot. We're going to go ahead and go to our activities, and that brings up the app launcher. I can show applications. I can look at utilities, and I can see my terminal right here. Okay, so that's usually one of the first things that I want to go to when I go to a system is find out where that is, because I usually have some work to do, and so I can go through and actually look at the files. I can make files, whatever I need to do here. Okay, um, but then use this command interface. You could always hold down Alt F2 and you can enter a command that's going to open up in its own window. I'm trying to have it give me another interface. There we go. Okay. Control Alt F3 and I can log in directly to the command prompt. Again, OS boxes and osboxes.org, or whatever is in the Fedora project as the main user. But this is directly logged into the command prompt. Control Alt F3. I can pop back to my graphical. And back to my user manager. And I'm going to go ahead and shut down my VM. So once that VM's off, you're good to go. You got, but that's how you use install Fedora, either from the ISO or the osboxes.org.